Hello, this is Silent Chief, and welcome to the Silent Chief Gaming channel. Today we're going to talk about a game that was very near and dear to my heart as a kid. I was a typical kid in the late 90s. I went over to my friend's house to play GoldenEye. A lot. I begged my parents for the game, but they did not approve of violent video games. Specifically the kind where you go around shooting other people. I really don't see what the problem was. Oh, right. Well, I guess for a 9-year-old that would be just a little too much. I still went over to my friend's house to play it anyway, but I actually didn't end up owning the game until much later on. At the time I had a subscription to Nintendo Power, and I read an article that was featuring this game. It wasn't a first-person shooter like GoldenEye was, but it was a shooting game on a console that I owned, so I had to make do. Plus my parents approved of it because you weren't shooting other people, you were shooting plastic men. At the time I had no idea that the Army Men franchise was even a franchise. I had only heard of Sarge's Heroes, which is technically the fourth game in the series and the first to come out on the N64. I still have yet to play the original games for PC, but I may check them out for another video. I remember thinking this game was not nearly as fun as GoldenEye, but I did remember having a fun time with it. My brother and I would play the multiplayer for hours. So does it still hold up today? Is it still as fun as I remember? Well, I guess we're gonna have to take a portal to the plastic world and find out. What was that? Was that stupid? If it was stupid... There's two game modes, the campaign and the boot camp. The campaign is obviously the meat of the game, and the boot camp is a quick training exercise that lets you shoot every weapon in the game and learn the controls. The plot of the game is pretty straightforward. You play as Sergeant Hawk, a soldier in the Green Army and the leader of a squad of interesting individuals. The main enemy in the game is the Tan Army, led by the nefarious General Plastro. At the beginning of the game, the Tan Army attacks the base and captures the majority of your squad, and you spend the rest of the game going on missions to rescue the members of your squad. In one of the first few levels, Sarge finds a portal that transports him to the Big World, which is our world. General Plastro has been stealing things from the Big World to create weapons of mass destruction like magnifying glasses. So it's up to us to save our squad and the Green General's daughter, Vicky, and defeat General Plastro once and for all. Since it's been a while, I'm going to check out the boot camp level to refamiliarize myself with the controls. Oh god, the controls. I'll just cut to the chase. The controls in this game are terrible. The camera is almost stuck to Sarge's back the whole time unless you're turning when you run, and then you can't see in front of you at all. You pretty much have to stop and swivel back and forth to see what you're shooting at or what is shooting at you. This slows the gameplay down like crazy, and luckily the enemy AI seems to have the same control issues as you, so that's good, I guess? Really, the movement is just kind of stiff, kind of like plastic. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right? Another thing working in your favor is the auto-aim. It's pretty forgiving, but you'll most likely waste some ammo because it takes a shot or two for the auto-aim to realize what you're shooting at. Of course, there is the manual aim, but once again, the aiming just feels stiff and really messes with the pace of the gameplay. And now the worst part of the game, the jumping. I know for a fact that the A button on my controller is not broken, but this game makes me wonder. Just look at this. This can be a little frustrating when you're platforming, but it gets infuriating when you're jumping over too high a distance, or jumping over water, or walking into the water because your jump didn't trigger. Yeah, Sarge can't swim, and what sucks about this is that there are no checkpoints during the levels. If and when you die because of the controls, you go back to the beginning of the mission. Speaking of death, Sarge has a health bar, but you also see his face up in the left corner of the screen. Depending on the level of his health bar, Sarge becomes unhappier and unhappier until... One of my favorite things about this game are the things that Sarge says when he picks up stuff. When he picks up a health pack, he's good to go. And he also says some other funny stuff when he picks up some of the weapons in the game.
Party time.
P-A-R-T. Why? Because I gotta!
The missions take place in a variety of locales. You fight in the plastic world, where the levels are actually pretty boring, and in the big world. These levels are more fun because the level designs are hilarious and more indicative of where you'd think a game about army men should take place. There's a kitchen level, a garden level, a Christmas-themed living room level, and even a bathtub level. Besides the aesthetics of the level, the missions themselves are not very well laid out, especially for the weapons that you need. For example, the best weapon for taking out tanks is a bazooka. It only takes 2 shots with the bazooka to take out a tank. You learn this in the first mission as you have to take out a couple of tanks, and you correctly assume that the bazooka is the best weapon to do it, as it is obviously the most destructive. But your weapons reset at the beginning of each mission, and there's a few missions that start you off by a tank or two with no bazooka anywhere. The worst is the mission where you have to rescue Riff, your bazooka guy, and there's no bazooka in sight. There's not even a grenade launcher near you either, so you're searching around for something to blow up the tank. Besides the small amount of hand grenades that you start with, there's nothing but boxes and boxes and boxes of mines. Logically, you'd assume that the game wants you to use the mines to take out the tank, as they're pretty much useless otherwise. The normal tan soldiers just stand where they are until they see you, or wait until you step across a specific pixel and just appear out of nowhere to start showering you with lead, or plastic. So the tank would be one of the only enemy types that patrols a specific area. You wait until it passes and run out to where it was, hoping it doesn't just magically see you because you step into its range of sight and lay some mines. The mines are now invisible and can only be seen if you use a minesweeper. How to use mines effectively. Step 1, select the mine. Step 2, set the mine in the general path of the tank. Step 3, walk into your mine and blow the up. This is pretty much what happened every time I attempted to use the mines. I finally was able to use a mine on the tank, which luckily caused it to glitch out and get stuck so I could keep chucking hand grenades at it. And speaking of glitches, there's a lot of them in this game. Enemies get stuck on stuff, you get stuck on stuff, enemies fire into the cover that they're behind, tanks appear on mountains, and your bullets are blocked by twigs and also air, apparently. The frame rate can get pretty awful too. I mentioned earlier that this game was very near and dear to my heart, emphasis on was. I will admit that playing the first level was pretty nostalgic for me, but as the game went on, its issues and technical problems kept getting in the way of my enjoyment.
So yeah, after playing this game, I'm probably not going to come back to it after some time, except for maybe a brief 15 to 20 minute nostalgia trip. If you did not grow up with the game and are not an extreme collector that has to have every N64 game ever released, then I really wouldn't suggest picking it up. Really, the only good things about the game are its concept and its sense of humor, as it really doesn't take itself too seriously. But then again, there are way better games in the Army Men franchise. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go practice my mine laying technique.